Okay, thank you everybody for joining me today. We are going to be taking a look at the GW Drupal overview. This is going to be a bit of an advanced look. We're going to be looking at some of the new features that were designed and developed exclusively for this theme. We do expect that everybody who's joining us today is an experienced GW Drupal user, so and not just that, but also using the editorial theme, whether you have a live site in this theme at the moment or if you are migrating into this theme. We essentially just want to be sure that you do have some familiarity with the GW Drupal editorial theme, because we are not going to be going through some of the basic content editing steps, such as creating a page and logging in, things along those lines. So let's go ahead and get started. So today's agenda is just a quick history and overview of the editorial theme. We will also have a quick rundown of the content types that were redesigned for the editorial theme, as well as the content types that were actually created exclusively for the editorial theme. We'll talk about web accessibility, how to make sure that your content is accessible for all of your users, and then we're actually going to log into the back of a GW Drupal editorial theme website and do some hands-on editing using some specific elements in the theme, including the hero banner, WYSIWYG templates and tabs, and then the media slider content set. If at any point during this session you have any questions or I'm running through something too quickly, feel free to type your questions into the chat window. I do have Annette Thompson from my team joining me today. She'll be happy to help you if you run into any technical issues. And then towards the end of the session, we'll have some time for questions and answers. So feel free to put your questions in at that point as well if you wanted to just have us talk a little bit more in depth about something that we've gone over, or maybe something that we didn't go over that you have questions about. So the theme history and a quick overview. The editorial theme was launched in 2015. It's the second theme that was made available in GW Drupal, which is the university's official website publishing platform for academic and administrative websites. So it's still a part of the enterprise GW Drupal service, meaning that all users share the styles, features, and functionality in this theme. The design does comply with GW's identity standards and guidelines. This theme is responsive for mobile devices, so if somebody's coming to your website from a mobile phone, a smartphone, or a tablet or some other device, the website will respond to that device and shift things around so that they're able to consume the information. It's also accessible for users who might be dealing with a disability, so somebody who maybe has a visual impairment, cognitive issues that they're dealing with. We've made sure that the design and the code behind the website is built in such a way that it still allows them to consume the information, just like somebody who does not have to deal with those challenges. And then the features that are built in are built to meet the needs of a broad user base across the university. So we wanted to make sure that it's not really suited for just one type of office or academic unit at GW. It's suitable for use cases in site owners across different disciplines and units throughout the university. So it was conceived in partnership with GW Today and designed with editorial type content in mind. So for those reasons, it does favor high resolution images, so really big images at full resolution really, and not ones that you've cropped down to be a specific size to display on your site. Full width content, so you can see over here for the documentary center, we've got some nice big images going up in the top header as well as in the body area. And then bite-sized chunks of text, meaning that you're presenting information, text information in smaller chunks, and then using your visuals, video, maybe some call to action links to get people to click in to get a deeper dive into that particular piece of content. A lot of the elements that were built for the classic theme of GW Drupal were actually redesigned for the editorial theme, so there's a lot of carryover from the old GW Drupal theme, if you have used that in the past, into the new theme, but those things might look a little bit different because we did redesign them to fit within the concept of an editorial type website. And then there are also elements that were uniquely designed and developed for the editorial theme. So looking first at those items that were redesigned from the classic GW Drupal theme, they include basically all of the page content types. So that's your article page, your event page, the general content page, the person page and the web form page. So any type of news content, any event that you want to put in there, your basic web page, your biography pages, and your form pages. All of those have carried over into this theme. They've just been redesigned, maybe from font styling and the way that your main image will display to work better in the editorial theme. We also carried over the photo gallery, the hero banner, which now comes in two different sizes, small and large. Excuse me. And your large hero banner can go full width for your browser screen, or it can actually be a fixed width just to kind of fit within the content area. Promotions have also been carried over, and they're just as useful as they were in the classic theme. And then we also redesigned the several content sets. So the feature spotlight, which traditionally on our classic theme sites have served as kind of a welcome message. Now they serve more for that featured news item that you might want to have at the top of your page. The rotating hero has been carried over as well, and the rotating sidebar has also been carried over. So those are some of the things that existed in the classic GW Drupal website. We see that a lot of people use them. They're very useful, and we determined in partnership, obviously, with the GW Today team as well as other units at the university who were giving us feedback on the GW Drupal classic theme, that these were some of the things that they wanted to see move over into the newer thing that we were developing. So some content types that were developed exclusively for this theme include the testimonial page, which allows you to create really a first-person account from somebody. So you might be getting a testimonial from somebody about their time at GW. We've also had people give testimonials for study abroad experiences that they've had, so you can really use it for a broad range of uses. Utility links, which display at the top of your website. And I'm going to be showing you guys all of these things once we get logged into the test site, so don't worry, you will have a visual reference, and you'll also get a visual reference in the recap and resources that I send over. So then your main header, this is actually new for this theme. In the classic theme, the header at the top of the page, it was basically pretty locked down and had some preset fields, but it's a lot more flexible in the editorial theme so that you can put in your own logo for your academic unit or your administrative unit, as well as a customizable call to action button link. And then down at the bottom of the website in your footer, we've also redesigned that to be what we're calling a 4-column footer, because you do get 4 columns in there that are completely free form, so you can put whatever information that you want into each one of those columns in there, or to leave one blank if you would like, whereas in the classic themes there were preset fields that you had to fill in to have any information show up in your footer. There's a feature called mini panels, which allows you to place 2 items side by side that are dynamic in nature. So if you wanted to have a rotator next to a feed of articles, you couldn't do that in the classic theme, but you can do that in editorial, and you'd use mini panels to do so. We also have a feature in the editorial theme called the What You See is What You Get WYSIWYG templates. So we're going to be taking a look at those today. They allow you to really create a dynamic page layout without ever having to leave the body field of your page. There are also new content sets designed exclusively for this theme. So that's the editor's pick, and we'll take a look at that on the GW Today website. The promotion set, which is kind of a grid display for displaying your promotions. A promotion slider, which allows you to put a set of promotions into a slider, exactly what it sounds like, as well as the testimonial set, which allows you to take those testimonial pages and actually display them in a sort of a feed at the bottom of your page, a little horizontal feed, so that you can have 4 of them displaying at one time. So I will show you an example of that as well. All right. So I mentioned earlier this theme is accessible out of the box. We've worked with the designers of marketing creative services as well as developers and university web and identity services to make sure that our code and our style choices are all accessible, but there's still a responsibility on you as our site owners and content editors to also make sure that you're doing your part to make sure the content in the websites is accessible as well. So you might have heard me talk about web accessibility in the past, but we always want to make sure that every opportunity that we have to remind you guys and to teach you guys on that, that we take that opportunity. Web accessibility does refer to making sure that your website is accessible to all users regardless of what browser or device that they're using. And that's because depending on the browser or device that a person is using, your website will display differently than if they were just looking at it on a desktop or a laptop computer. And particularly in the case of those who might be using assistive devices to help them with any challenges that they're using, it can be a completely different experience depending on how that website is coded, how it's designed, and how the content is actually entered into the website. So adhering to those good accessibility practices, it's not just good for making sure your website's accessible to everybody. It's also good for your search engine optimization, and it's just good practice all around. You always want to make sure that you're doing these things because you will find that it makes your website perform better in the long run. It's also a legal requirement, and you need to make sure, especially in the higher education industry, that you are making sure that your content is accessible. If your website content is not accessible, it actually does put the university in a position where we could be subjected to litigation, and universities across the country are actually finding that happening as the technologies improve and more people are using different types of devices to get the information that they need online. So what that means for you as site owners and content editors is you always need to be sure that you're using your navigation menu to link to pages within your website. We often get people contacting us and saying, hey, I need to add a link in my menu, and I need to link it to this other website that we're partnered with, or this application that we own, or something along those lines. You don't want to do that. And the reason being that if somebody's using, maybe with a visual impairment, is using an assistive device to read down the page for them as they're going through that navigation, their expectation is that all of this information is within your website. If they suddenly click on a link and it takes them off of your website, they're going to have to start at the very top of that new website's page and go all the way down again, listening to everything on that page. And if that website's not accessible, that actually is a mark against us, because we need to be making sure that resources that we're providing and endorsing, essentially, that we're also saying we're checking and being sure that they're accessible as well. So if you're putting that link in your navigation and you're sending somebody off to a third-party website or application that is not a part of your website, it's going to be jarring for them from a content structure standpoint, and it could also just be a really inaccessible location that you've sent them to, and that could be, again, a really bad experience for them. So you never want to use your navigation to link to anything outside of your website. You also want to make sure that when you're using the heading options within the text editor, that you're using them to identify the topics on your page. You're not using them as decoration. And that, again, goes pretty strongly towards screen reader devices and assistive devices in that manner. They can actually be configured or use shortcuts to just read the subheads on a page. And so if you're using those subheads as decoration because maybe you're trying to make something stand out visually to people because it's some type of important information that you want them to see, that person is now going to have to listen to whatever this other information is because it's wrapped in the HTML tags that identify it as the subhead, and they're not going to have an option to skip past it and listen to the things that they actually need to listen to, or they might not trust that, as they go further down the page, that all of these subheads are actually subheads. They could be being used for other purposes again. So that, again, is a mark against us from an accessibility standpoint. So we need to be sure that when we're using our subheads, that we're using them to identify topics on a page and not as decoration. For your images, you always want to be sure that you are using the alternate text field, also known as alt tags, that you're filling that in for all images. And what that's going to do is it will be read aloud for somebody using an assistive device if they can't see the image for themselves. So that's why you want that to be a descriptive information and not, like the file name or just say photo, or really if you're just putting like one word in there, that's probably not going to be descriptive. So if you have a photo of students in a classroom talking to an instructor, that right there can be your alt text, students in a classroom talking to an instructor. If you have an image of, some location on campus, name what that location is, and that's descriptive enough for the person to understand the context of that image. If you're using an image that has text in it, like a graphic that you're putting text onto the page and in the image, you need to actually include all of the text that's in your image in that alt text field. And that's actually why we always tell people, don't use PDFs or posters as your as images on your page, and definitely don't use them as like the entire context of a page. Like if you have an event and you've had a really nice poster designed for that event, and you just kind of put that up on the page and say, there, all of the information everybody needs is right there. If I can't see that poster, I can't get that information. And if you haven't taken the time to put all that text into the alt text field, I can't get that information. So that's why we always caution against doing that kind of thing, because it's actually very inaccessible. The other place that it should be noted that this actually comes into play is on mobile devices. If somebody is loading this page on their phone, there's a chance that your PDF or your poster is not going to load for them, and they won't be able to see it. Or if it does load for them, it's going to be so small that they can't really legibly read it. So again, that's why you don't want to be using PDFs in your posters as the entire content for your page, and that also will happen in emails as well that are pulled up on mobile devices as well. Many times those images won't load, and if you don't put in alt text on those images in the emails, again, people will not have any idea what's going on in that photo. So just something to keep in mind for all of your images. You always want to be using descriptive alt text and be strategic with the images that you use. If it's got really pertinent information in it, that has to be in your alt text field. And if that's a lot of pertinent information, then it's going to be better to actually just put it in the body text of your page. And then finally, we just ask you to follow the workflow and best practices that we advise you of for the different GW Drupal features, because typically we're doing that because it's going to ensure that your website and that your workflow is intuitive, quick, and efficient for you. Okay? Are there any questions on anything we've gone over so far? Okay. Oh, it does look like there's a question. Let's see. You list the Mandarin event name in the subtitle. Would this cause an issue? Using an event name as a subtitle is not an issue since it's a topic on the page. It's really more about thinking about how you're using subtitles in the context of everything on the page. If the page title doesn't include the event name, using the event name as a subtitle later on the page is probably not that big a deal since it is a topic on that page, but just kind of weigh it against everything else that's on that page as well. If you're really doing it for decoration, then you might want to get away from it, but if it really is like a subtopic on the page, which in this case it sounds like it could be, it's probably acceptable to go ahead and do that. Any other questions? All right. Can't find the mouse. There it is. All right, so let's go ahead and actually get logged into the back of the Drupal site. You should all have an account on cmsite12.gwu.edu. You just want to go to this web address that you see here. You'll use your NetID as your username and your NetID password to log in. So I'll go ahead and give everybody a chance to do that, and then we'll get started working in the back end of the site. I'm going to go ahead and get logged in myself. Let's make sure you guys can see my screen. Okay, so we're here on CMS Site 12. Go ahead and get logged in. And we're going to go to the Drupal training section. And then Advanced Editorial 101. And once you get to the Advanced Editorial 101 page, you should each see a page with your name listed over here in the sub-navigation. Go ahead and click on the link for your page. So Leah will click on Leah's page, Dan will click on Dan's page, so on and so forth. And that's going to be the page that you're going to work on today. So the first thing that we're going to actually do, oh, it looks like I have a question. Feel free to go ahead and type your question into the chat. Um, okay, someone's having trouble getting into the Drupal training page. Thank you, Annette. So Annette just wanted to remind everybody that she's here to help answer any questions that you have. So Sarah, it looks like Annette needs some assistance. I'm sorry, Annette, it looks like Sarah needs some assistance getting logged in. If you would be so kind as to maybe chat with her privately and see if her login credentials are incorrect. Thank you. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do, you should be on your page at this point. We're going to click on that draft button. And if everybody also, I should point out, wants to go to www.lipsum.com, lipsum.com, we're going to use this site for some dummy text, basically. Once you get to this website, down on towards the lower right, you'll see an option to generate lorem ipsum, and we're just going to go ahead and click on that button. It's just going to give us some dummy text that we'll be able to copy and paste into our Drupal website. So again, you want to go to www.lipsum.com, and once you're on the home page for that site, you'll scroll down just a little bit until you can see in the lower right corner where it says, do you want paragraphs, words, bytes, or lists? And the default set to 5 paragraphs, which is go ahead and leave that there, and you'll click Generate Lorem Ipsum. Okay. So back in Drupal, we're going to start first with one of our newer features called the WYSIWYG templates. And how you use templates is basically to allow you, again, to create a more kind of fluid, dynamic layout on your page so that it's not all just, you know, a chunk of text. You can have things sitting side by side. You can have things that sort of something might be 75% of the page on the left and 25% of the page on the right. It just allows you to kind of play with the layout on the page, both with your text and in your visuals. To get to your templates, you'll click on the icon over here in the last bank of icons. It looks like a piece of paper, and that's going to be the icon for your templates. And once you click on that, you'll see this window pop up for the different content templates that are available. There are over 20 templates. Some of them are just kind of variations of each other. So you'll see at the top you'll have 2 across, 3 across, 4 across. And as you go further down the page, you'll see they start to kind of vary. We maybe have a single item that's centered on your page, but it's not necessarily the full width of the page. Getting items that are sitting side by side, but again, not necessarily the full width of the page. You also have some options for aligning your text on the left or right side of your page with or without text wrap. And then you also have some options for getting testimonials into your page. So we are going to start at the top of our page. I'm going to select the 3 across. Once you select a template type, it gets placed within the text editor. It's got the yellow highlights around it to kind of show you where all the boundaries for everything is. And you just swap out the default text and images that is in there with whatever you want to place in there. So I'm going to, for ease of today's session, expand the size of my text editor to the full width of my screen so I don't have to scroll so much and you guys can follow me a bit easier. So again, once the templates are there, all you have to do basically is overwrite what the default text and image is in. For that image, you can just double click on it. It will open the image properties window, and you'll just click on that file browser button to get to the file browser menu to see all of the images that have already been uploaded to your site. So right now I'm in the download folder, which has our documents. So I'm going to click into the image folder, and I can see now all of the images that have already been uploaded to the site from here, and I can pick one from here. If I wanted to upload something new, I would just click on this upload button, then choose file, and actually go through the process of downloading something from my hard drive. But I'm going to use images that are already in here. I'm going to click on the width column twice so that I can look at images that are at a high width resolution. and then scaling down to smaller ones. In the editorial theme, again, it does favor high resolution images. So you want to try and get your images in there at the highest resolution that you can. The maximum that it does support is 2,000 pixels wide. So if you have an image that's bigger than that, when it actually goes through the upload process, Drupal will scale it down so that it's at a max width of 2,000 pixels. What we found is the ones that tend to work best are 1,080 pixels wide, typically by 720. If it's a little more or a little less than that, it shouldn't be too big of a deal depending on where you're using it, but typically your best image resolution is going to be 1080 by 720. So I'm going to go ahead and just pick one of these images that's at that resolution already. So feel free to go ahead and pick one as well. And you can double click on it or click the Insert File button. It has the same action regardless of which one you choose. And then you'll see here we've got our alternative text field. So we just want to describe what's going on in this photo. And it looks like the Washington Monument in the winter. So that's what's going, my alternate text is going to be. The monument in the winter. I'm not going to change anything else, and I'm just going to click the OK button, and now I can see my images in there. I can put my subhead here. It's monument. It's going to keep the styles that were already in there. For the body text, I can just overwrite that. I'm going to go to my Lord Ipsum tab here, grab a few sentences, copy that, and paste that there. And again, it's going to pick up the styles that were already there. I don't have to do anything special to keep those styles. We do still recommend as much as possible whenever you're copying and pasting from an external source that you do use that paste from text or paste from plain word option. It's going to be your surest bet of making sure that you're not pulling in any code or styles that might actually mess with the layout of your page on your website. And so I'm just going to do the exact same thing for these other two default templates here for the other two items. So double click on that big blue default image, go to Browse Server. I'm still filtering my list by the width, so I'm just going to pick a different one in this case. That's the wrong dimension, so let's see. And I'll click OK. And it's important to note that I am choosing images that have the same resolution to go in each one of these. If I wanted to do something that, as opposed to being in the landscape dimension, was in a portrait dimension, that's fine, but you are going to see that sort of jump in the height from one image to the next. So if this image for this third item was, 720, was basically flipped so that it was a portrait image as opposed to being a landscape image, it is going to display like that. It's not going to have the same display as these other two do in landscape. So that's something to keep in mind when you're placing items next to each other like that. You want to make sure they all have the same sort of aspect ratio as far as one having them all either be landscape in their aspect ratio or all being portrait in their aspect ratio. So I'm going to go ahead and do my subtitle here as well. Oh, it looks like I have another question. So the question is, will the image quality be lowered if we edit in the Drupal file browser? It should not be lower if you're starting with a high resolution image, but again, if you're uploading at that high resolution image, you really shouldn't have to be doing any editing once it's in Drupal because the system will scale it for you. If you do find that you need to, scale an image down for some reason, try not to go any smaller in width than 1080 pixels if it's a landscape image. If it's a portrait scale image, you basically want to flip that so it'll be 720 by 1080. And I'm going to share, by the way, all of these image dimensions with you guys in a cheat sheet that we basically have in the follow-up resources. So this is my professor at a whiteboard. And again, I'm just going to grab some dummy text. And this time I am going to do it the right way. I'm going to highlight that text. take my paste from plain text clipboard, paste that in, and click OK. And then let's do this last one again. Just double click on that image. Select one that is at the appropriate dimensions. Click Insert, and that looks like students in a chemistry lab. And I'll click OK. And then we'll just call this chemistry lab experiment. And again, we'll just copy some text here and drop that into our text space. And then that's how you basically get your template onto the page. So this is what it's basically going to be to workflow. Anytime you're using one of the templates that has an image, a title, and some text, you're just going to double click on what that image is, overwrite what the default subhead is, and then either type or copy and paste in your body text that you would like to have in the text field instead. Any questions on this first one before we move on to the next template type? We're going to do some tabs beneath this. All right, so let's go ahead and do our next item. So what you're going to do is scroll just towards the bottom of the text editor screen. You should see a red line show up with sort of a red return button. You'll click on that to insert a new paragraph and get your cursor back in to the page. And I'm actually going to contradict myself. We're not going to do tabs next. We're going to do a testimonial. So go ahead and click on that icon that looks like the page to get your templates again. And we're going to scroll all the way down. And there are several options for testimonial. There's testimonial left and right aligned, and then where you see that it says heavy versus light, that's talking about the font treatment. There's a version where the quote's sort of in really strong bolded text versus an option where it's in a lighter weight font. As far as the text goes. I'm not going to use these two options right now just because I don't want to have to go through the process of putting an image up. So I'm going to choose this last option where it says testimonial quote. This is the option that you use if you've got a quote but you don't have an image. So we're just going to click on that, and just like before, we see that the template gets dropped into the page for us, and all we have to do is overwrite it. So I'm actually going to highlight this text and say that my time at GW gave me the knowledge and experience I needed to get a leg up on my career. And then we get down here, and you just like before, you just overwrite the text that was already in there. So where it says name of person, put in the real name for the person who gave you the quote. I'm going to say that we got this from George. And then you have two affiliation lines, so you can fill these in with the information that you need. We see these get used in a number of ways. Sometimes it's the true definition of affiliation. It'll say, you know, GW staff member, something like that. Sometimes it'll be class of whatever year if it's coming from a student. So it's just text. You can put in whatever you want to put in there. It's really just styled so that it all has a nice cohesive look when it's on the page. So we're going to say first president and university's namesake. And then that's all you have to do to get your quote in there. Now, something fun that we kind of built into the testimonial templates, right at the top here you see this horizontal rule with the quotation marks in the middle. We've actually designed a couple different options for what this little doodad, and that is literally what we call it. We call it a doodad. There are a couple of options for what can display here. The default is the quotation mark, but we've also taken into account that sometimes you get these quotes from social media. So there's also an option for Twitter, an option for Facebook, and an option for Instagram. So the way that you would change that, and it's a little more advanced, you'll go into your source code, And once you click on that, you get the HTML layout for the page. You're no longer looking at that designed version. You're looking at the code and the CSS. And you're going to do a search. So I'm going to click on the spyglass for doodad, because that's literally what we called it. So I put doodad in there. I click enter, and it dropped me down here to the spot where the little doodad is. So since it just says doodad, that's the default for the quotation mark. If I wanted to now have Twitter in there instead, the little Twitter, I'll just put in dash Twitter. And then if I get out of my source view and go back to the styled view of the page, just going to take a moment to load. When I scroll down now, I've got a little tweet bird instead. So if I wanted that to be Facebook instead, I would have put dash Facebook. If I wanted that to be the Instagram little camera logo, then you would put dash Instagram instead. But we thought that was just like a nice, fun little way to make it a little more contextual for where you got that quote, and just a nice little visual to also reference where you got that quote from. All right, so now that I have my quote in there and I'm ready to instead put my tabs on the page, if you get your cursor down on the bottom and click within the text editor, you should be able to get your cursor to show up again. If not, if you're getting that red line, click on that red line so that it will drop you a new spot for your cursor on the page. And so for this next template, we're going to use the tabs. I am going to have to reduce the size of my text window just because it doesn't really play nice when I've got it at full screen like that with these tabs. So I am going to have to do a little scrolling for this one. You'll just have to bear with me. I apologize. But I'm going to click on this second to last icon here that looks like a file folder, and those are your tab options. And you'll get this box that opens up, this window, that has 3 empty small WYSIWYG text editors and then a spot for you to place 3 tab titles. And so we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm just going to say tab title 1. And then in that first text editor, I'm going to go back to my lorem ipsum text here, and I'm just going to grab a paragraph and get my cursor into that first box, click on my clipboard icon to paste in my text. And that's all I really need to do. You do have the option to do some additional formatting if you like. You can also get an image in there and some bullets and numbers. So if you kind of need this to have a little more formatting going on, you definitely have the ability to do that. For today's training, I'm just going to do really basic text. So I'm not going to use those features, but do know that those are available to you. So now we've got tab title 2. Go back and grab some more text. And again, use my clipboard to get that in there. And then we're going to go down to tab title 3. And we're going to grab the rest of the text on the page. And then once I've got all of my text in there and I'm happy with, the placement of everything, the order of my tabs, I can go ahead and just click on this OK button. If I wanted to add one, I would just click on that Add a New Item button, but I'm happy with the 3 that I have right now. So I'm just going to click OK, and I can already see a representation of what my tabs look like on the page. I can't click them for the tab title 2 and 3 because they're not functional in the text editor. They're only going to be functional on the front end of the website. So I'm pretty happy with how my page is looking so far. The last thing that I'm going to do before saving my page, I am going to put a main image on my page. And to do that, I'm just going to go right here to this main image section, click on File Browser, and then Browse. And I'm still in my image folder, which is exactly where I want to be. And we're just going to pick a main image. Just like before, I'm going to sort my options by the width so that I'm choosing one of my high-res images. And we're going to go ahead and just pick one. So I think I've used these before, so why don't we go with something new? I'm going to choose the Brady Gallery center image. And it looks like it's a patron looking at an exhibit. So once I click that Insert File button, and the system uploads it. It's going to take a minute. Oh, let's see. Doesn't look like that took. I will go with the smaller one. It might have been too big. There we go. 1024. It's George. Let's use George. Oh, I think it's actually stuck. I'm going to have to actually save my page. I think it got stuck when I tried to choose that big image. Sometimes you might find that if you use an image that's too big, this kind of times out running that process for it. So if that happens and you don't want to lose all of the work that you've done on the page, just scroll down to the bottom and click that save button. It'll save it as a draft. Nothing will be published yet. And then you can go to that edit draft button, and then you can actually then go through the process of uploading your image. So it's unfortunate that that had to happen, but now you know what you can do to mitigate it and to keep working without losing all of the work that you've done so far. So back in that main image section, I've clicked on File Browser and Browse, and we are going to go for a slightly smaller one this time and click Insert File, and now we've got our George image. So I'm just going to call this GW George Mascot for my alternate text. And that's actually all you need to do for that main image. You can use the title field if you would like. If somebody is on a desktop and they hover their mouse over that image and just keep it there, it's just going to display whatever text you have in that field. It's not required. We do recommend it. We believe it might be good for your search engine optimization, but don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% positive. You do have all of the other fields as far as having a caption there, featuring a video on top of the image. All of those same things apply. But now that I've got my main image up there, I'm going to go ahead and say this page is ready to go. I'm going to click on that Publishing Options tab and change my moderation state from draft to publish. And now I'm going to click Save and publish this to my front-end users. And you're going to notice a couple of things. So we've got our main image in there. It's sandwiched in between our page title and our body text. The body text that was already there is still there. We've got our 3 across template here, and it's kind of smushed into that middle column because this is a page with sidebars. I'm going to show you guys how you can change that to a page without sidebars in just a moment. But so long as it is a page with sidebars, the system is always going to basically, when you're logged in, smush it in to fit within that middle column where the body text always goes. We also have my quote and my functional tabs. Now, if I want to get a representation of what this is going to look like for a front user, what I'm going to do is highlight and copy that page link in the browser bar. And I'm going to actually open up an incognito window. So let's go to File, New Incognito Window, and I'm going to paste in that page link. And you can see now the image is even bigger because now it's actually scaling into that empty right sidebar, and everything else is also kind of flowed into that empty space so that I don't have that awkward white space. All of my images are just a little bit bigger, and things are just kind of fitting and looking a little bit nicer. Now, if you are trying to design a page where you don't want sidebars, the important thing to note when you're doing that, and I'm going to go back to our logged in view, is you can do that so long as you haven't made any customizations to the page using this Customize This Page button down at the bottom. Once you do that, the workflow that we're about to go through to change the page from being one with sidebars to one without, the only way you can do it is by resetting the panels on the page, and then you're going to lose any of those customizations. So always try and have an idea up front before you do any page customizations as to whether or not you want your page to have sidebars or to not have sidebars. And also keep in mind that if you choose for it to not have sidebars, that also means that your sub-navigation links are not going to display. So how we've got sub-pages right now running in our sidebar here, once I do these next steps, that's all going to go away. So I'm just going to click on New Draft to get back into the edit screen, go all the way down to the bottom, and then this tab right here that we always ignore where it says Panelizer, and then it says Default General Content, we're not going to ignore it this time. We're actually going to expand it and choose the option for General Content without sidebars. And now we're going to click on that moderation state again for our publishing options and publish our page. So now that we've done that, we can see that everything has shifted so that it's in the it's going full width across the page. The text now is left aligned, the image is right aligned, and then everything is just kind of expanded into the empty spaces in the right or the left. So images have gotten a little bit bigger to accommodate. The text is expanding out just a little bit more as well, so that basically we have no empty white spaces to the right or the left. So that's how you would shift having a page from being either a page with sidebars or a page without sidebars. Are there any questions on anything we've gone through so far? We've got a handful of things left on our agenda. I just want to make sure we get to them. But if you have questions, I want to make sure that we get to those as well. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to do, we're actually just going to add a hero banner to this page. We're not going to create a hero. There's already one in the site that we're going to be using. But adding heroes in the editorial theme, it's optional on every single page now. In the classic theme, it was always required that you have a hero on every page, basically, and you would do that by using site placement. In the editorial theme, the way you actually do it is you first create your hero just like you would in the classic site, but then you actually use your Customize This Page button. And you'll see that there's a couple of regions on your page. There's the full bleed top, and then there's just the top. And this will change a little bit based off of whether or not the page has sidebars or not. You're still going to basically have these two, essentially the same two regions here. The full bleed one at the top of the page, which just means that whatever content's up there, it's going to go from edge to edge for the entire screen, versus just the top one here, where it's just going to go within the confines of the content area, which is just, I think, just about 1,000 pixels, maybe a little more or less in width. So we are going to start in the full bleed top region. I'm going to click on that plus icon over there, and then to add your hero banner, that's going to be under your GW Display View site placement options. And you can see this list is pretty long, kind of scary looking, but there is a filter option, so you can actually get it down to something that's a little more manageable to look at. My recommendation is to always type in the word user, because those are the options that you're going to be using in this theme. It just means user select. The user is selecting the item, the specific item that they want to pull into the page. So once you put user in and your list gets filtered, you can see here we have a couple of hero options. We are going to be doing a static hero today. We're not going to be doing a rotating hero. So we can ignore these top two options, but just know that you do have them. Again, I mentioned earlier, your hero comes in two sizes in this theme, which is the large, which can either be edge to edge for full bleed at the top of the page, or it can be fixed width where it's just within that content area. And you do want to make sure for that large rotating that you're using the correct option. And then you can have a small hero. And for that, you're just going to have use the hero static option. So once you click on that, you should see this window where it now gives you this text field that you can fill in, and you'll see this little circle at the end of it. That's our node ID reference, so it's looking for a specific node for an item that you've already created. So we're just going to type in the name of our hero, and I did put the word hero in it, so you can just type in the word hero. And you'll see there's Hero Advanced Drupal 101. That's the one that we're going to be using today. And then you can just click Finish. And our hero is in there. So once you click Save, you can see you get your hero at the top of the page. I did fill in all of the fields for the hero banner. So in this theme, that allows you to have a banner, a link for the hero title if you would like to, as well as some summary text and a call to action link. So you can have whatever the title is right here. It can be linked or not linked. I chose to link it in this case, and it's going to the main university website. And then separate from that, you can have what's called a call to action link, and that can actually go somewhere separate or you can use one or the other. It's entirely up to you. But you also have the option of just having this be a decorative hero that has no text or images on it at all. So you can do that either by just uploading a hero that has no text on it, or if you click on that Customize This Page button again, and then you click on your gear icon to get to your settings. Oops, I'm going to refresh my page. Hopefully this will just take a second. Yeah. So you click on your Customize This Page button, click on that gear icon, and then when you're back on this configuration options for your hero banner, down at the bottom right here, there's an option that says Hide Content Title. If you click on that and then click Finish, you'll see that all of your text now disappears. So one other thing you can do with your static hero is you can actually grab that static hero and drag it down into this top section if you don't want it to be a full width hero going from edge to edge on your browser screen. So I've dragged it down. I'm going to refresh my page just to kind of dust out the cobwebs in the short-term cache of the page and of the system. And now you can see I've still got my hero up there. All of that text is gone, but now it's a full width one versus, it's a fixed width one versus full width going from edge to edge for the browser window. Now it's just going edge to edge for the content area. So you have some options there for how you get your images in there. This hero content type that I'm using right now, it's using the built-in recommended dimensions for the hero banner. Do know that you're able to basically bust out of those confines by doing a custom one, and we're happy to help you do that. We do that a lot. When our users come to us during the project phase, we'll help them with custom size heroes, so that if that's something that you want to do, just reach out to us and we're happy to help you get that set up. But if you're going to use the default ones, it's really just a matter of the steps that we just went through. So then the last thing that we're actually going to add to the page, there's two slider options in the current editorial theme. One is called a promotion slider, and the other one is called media slider. And I want to put them both on the page so that you can see them side by side and kind of see the difference in how they will display, so that if you're ever thinking of putting one of them on your page, you have an idea of what it's going to actually look like given whatever type of content that you might have available. So just like we did with our hero banner, we're going to click on Customize This Page. And this time we are going to add it to the top region. So find wherever your top region is. Click on that plus icon. And again, we're going to go to GW Display Views - Site Placement and put in User. And the first one we're going to do is Media Slider User Select. So I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to search using the word Advanced. And you can see that I've got my Advanced Editorial Media Slider. We're going to start with that one. You want to make sure you're always using the right slider content type for the pane that you're adding to your page, your content pane. So I'm just going to click on that and then click Finish. And we can already see what my slider looks like a little bit here. I'm going to drag it down lower on the page because I don't want it to be the first thing on the page. So I'm going to drag it underneath the body text, and once I see that yellow space, I can go ahead and release it. Now before I save the page, I'm going to scroll back up to the top, and I'm going to go through those steps again, but this time I'm going to add my promotion slider. So we're looking for the promotion slider 12 column. So it's going to be the second to last option once you filter by the word user. You should be seeing promotion slider 12 col, C-O-L, which is short for column, - user select. We're going to click on that. And again, search for advanced. And this time I'm going to click on my promotion slider option and click finish. And just like I did before, I'm going to drag it down to the bottom of my page. And it's up to you whether you drag it below or above that media slider. That's entirely up to you, but I am going to go ahead and click Save once I have it where I want it. And I'm going to refresh my page. Now, with your promotion slider, you do need to use the promotion content type to use that slider. And with the media slider, you'll see they're pretty similar in their displays, but there are a few differences. So with the promotion, there are a lot more fields than there used to be in the classic theme. You have your main image. You still have your body summary text, but you also have the option now to have a link on your title, as well as a separate call to action link. And then just like before in the classic theme, you have the ability to feature video. The difference for how they display, so we have here with our promotion slider, you get your image, you get your play button on top if you have a video that you're featuring, and then you get your title that you've assigned to the promotion, as well as any summary text, and your call to action link will then display underneath it. So you basically get all of the elements that are displaying in this light box essentially on top of the main image for your promotion. If you scroll down to where your media slider is, you'll see that all you get in this case is you get the main image, the video play button if that's available, and then you just get that title. You don't get that summary text. If you've chosen to have a call to action, that will actually suppress the title that you put onto that promotion instead. So you basically get one or the other. You can either show the title or you can show that call to action, but you can't show both. So that's a little bit less information. And reason being, if I'm going to go over here to the GW Today homepage, and they actually are using it down here. For GW in Focus, these are basically highlighted photos. And then right next to it, they have featured videos. And so they wanted to have a space where they could just kind of show these strong visual stories that they have. And so they didn't want something that was really cluttered visually with all of that information. So that's why you have the option between a media slider, because it's really about focusing on that media versus the promotion set where maybe you have a lot more text that you also want to be including in your slider. So they're pretty similar, again, in that final display, but there are some key differences to note when you put one up next to the other. So just keep that in mind as well when you are choosing to use one versus the other. And as you can see on GW Today, this is actually a mini panel, which I mentioned earlier, allows you to have two dynamic things sitting side by side. So in this case, we've got two sliders sitting side by side. That slider, depending on the size of your page, if it's a full width page or a page with sidebars, or if it's sitting in a media slider as it is here, that will scale. The size of it will scale to fit within the allotted content space that you've assigned to it. So this is just an example of how the system does scale imagery up or down as necessary. So I see we're just over time now. I do apologize for that, but that actually is our whole agenda for the day. But before I, sign off and let you guys go, if there are any questions, feel free to go ahead and put those into the chat, and I'd be happy to answer them. I'm not seeing anything just yet. Okay. So yes, I will be sharing the slides with everybody, as well as the recorded video once it's available, and some additional resources that I've talked about. Hopefully I'll also have some videos from some of the features that we didn't really go over today, but maybe we've done a training for in the past. We're going to try and make sure we can locate those links for you guys and share them with you as well, so that you can get an in-depth on how to use those things, such as mini panels, for example. So I will be getting that information out to you guys within the next day or so, once that video link is available. I do want to thank you all for joining me today. I appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of your Monday.